Hello, I'm Suggs from the band Madness, and I'm very happy to be here today to talk about a fantastic new charity called Horizons and learn about some of the work they're doing to help children and young people in the Haringey and Enfield communities. Well, the reason I'm here, which is a bit of a sort of odd trajectory, was I started this thing called Suggs and Friends, which was just a gig basically to raise money, and I thought I don't want it to end. It was going so well, but I thought I'd really like to do something that helps kids. And just then James came along with the idea of Horizons, and it was just one of those real moments of serendipity. And I'm very pleased to be here today to talk to these characters. And in fact, I will be doing Suggs and Friends with Paul Weller and a host of other great guests at the Albert Hall at Alexandra Palace. Close!
We can change the location.
Begins with an A. At Alexandra Palace, I told you the first time, to raise money for this lovely charity Horizon. And if you fancy joining us, get more ticket information at horizoncharity.org. It's going to be a great night. And I am joined today in the studio by Chief Exec of Haringey Education Partnership, James Page, and from Football Beyond Borders, Chidi and Tom. Welcome to you all.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. James, can I start by asking you to tell us about Horizon and how you got involved with it?
Absolutely. So thank you so much, first of all, for getting involved. It's an absolute joy and a pleasure. So we were in the middle of, I think, the second lockdown. So schools were partly closed. We had a lot of online teaching going on. And we've always known that there have been huge disparities, not just in access to educational resources, but everything that goes around that, whether it's music or sport or the arts. And being able to actually see for teachers into the bedrooms, the homes of the children that they were teaching, and look at those students who at school sit next to each other, sit on the same desk, and yet have such unequal amounts at home, such unequal access to all the different opportunities. So we wanted to make sure that, starting with Haringey Education Partnership, we're working with all the schools to make sure that they're as strong as can possibly be, but we knew we needed to go further. We knew we needed to look outside the classroom as well for all the things that the children really need for that and create more of a level playing field. So we decided we had to act. And we started by consulting the schools. I'll be honest, I was a little bit nervous at first. Thought they might think I'd lost my mind and, gone far beyond the remit.
But just to stop me for a second, not that this isn't, the most important bit of it, but how did you actually firstly even think about this as a concept?
Well, a member of the team gave me a call in the evening. It was about 7:30. I was just making dinner for the kids. And she was saying...
Because this is quite an undertaking, do you know what I mean? It's not the sort of thing
Absolutely.
You do lightly. Yeah,
so she dropped the idea. And I just thought it was absolutely where we had to go. You know, when you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, you're like, this is big. This is really important. And it's something we could do something about meaningfully. And so kind of took that, spoke to the board at Haringey Education Partnership first off and just said, I need to test this with you. Is this a crazy idea or is this a really good idea? Because it had to be one or the other. And so we got started. And that was a good 18 months ago. And we now have a charity that is set up with the Charity Commission, so Horizons officially exists, and we're ready to go.
Well, very well done indeed, and I think it's a very, very exciting project. And as I said to you before we came in, because what you find in life often is things are very theoretical, and it's just, can't we do something for kids? And you go, and then the room goes quiet. I mean, you can't save the planet in one go. But this fact it's so specifically geographically in one place, you think, well, we're starting somewhere and we're genuinely chipping away. Now, Chidi, can you tell me about Football Beyond Borders, please?
Absolutely, yeah. Football Beyond Borders, FBB as we call it. It was an educational charity set up back in 2015. And our whole approach is to reduce the exclusion rate for young people in schools. Multifaceted approach. So we do a lot of things to try and reduce that exclusion rate. But ultimately, we're trying to change the attitudes that young people have about themselves, about school, about their teachers, their home life. Just change the narrative that they have of themselves to something a lot more positive.
I mean, the obvious thing that strikes me about that is football is something that all kids find cool, so you don't feel like it's like someone's laying something, educationally complicated on you. Yeah. So that draws them in, though. That's the start, yeah.
Absolutely, that's the vessel. Started off with just being a boys' programme, worked with just boys, and football might be the biggest hook that you can throw out to boys at a young age. And we've developed a curriculum which uses football as basically the root of it. to develop their social and emotional skills. And yeah, it basically just brings them into a community that they've created, shared with project leads, which is the people that go into schools and deliver this curriculum once a week. And ultimately, yeah, we've developed a project or program that is based in 91 schools across the country, over 1,500 kids across the country, from London to Liverpool to Manchester, and opening up some new schools really soon.
And I know, because we talked before, you do some of the statistical work. I mean, so how are you? I mean, I know disadvantage is even a word that I find a bit sort of difficult, but how are you choosing which kids you're going to try and work with?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a quite detailed enrollment criteria. So we've identified certain kids are more at risk of getting kicked out if they fill certain criteria. And those could be if they've got adverse childhood experiences. That could be they're receiving quite a lot of behaviour points or negative points in school, which is how usually schools will grade this sort of things. They're getting detentions if their attendance is pretty low. So there's a wide bunch of metrics that we use to pick up who is who. And from that, we build out a cohort of kids. And it's quite detailed, the group dynamics. So we've got X amount of these type of person, X amount of these. And together, it's just, they all work together. We've got role models, or what we call role models, which are the usually high attaining students working with some of the most at risk, and they're less advantaged as them, but together, they just form a relationship, form a bond, and it's all about the kids doing peer-to-peer learning as much as we're trying to teach them stuff as well.
So that's a very close cooperation with the schools themselves, obviously, to find that information, yeah.
Absolutely. So before a session would even start, we will go and talk to the teachers about the kids. They'll identify who they might want, we'll identify who we think might be a good fit as well, and we'll talk it through completely, from the ground up. All right, this person might be great because of that. And they think, oh, yeah. So there's a lot of to and fro in, but we'll get there in the end.
That's right. And Tom, you're the school's programme lead for FBB. And what does that role exactly entail?
Yeah, well, you say the schools programme lead, it makes me sound like I'm the only one, like I'm the most important one, but there's many of us, but part of a wider team. But basically what it means is that I'm out there delivering the curriculum, delivering the programme that Chidi just explained. So every day I'm in a different school, although over the course of the year I'm in the same 5 schools. So every Monday I'm in one school, every Tuesday another, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. And what I do there is that we deliver an hour a week in the classroom, and that's following our social and emotional based learning curriculum. So we have loads of different projects throughout the year. An example off the top of my head, we do a project called What Makes a Mate. So it's looking at identifying healthy, unhealthy aspects of friendships, stuff like that, looking at social emotional skills like self-awareness, relationship skills. We have another scheme of work called Perfect Penalty, so that's using that draw a football, talking about the most pressurised situation you have on a football pitch, taking a penalty, but then linking that to school, linking that to home. When do you feel pressure at school? Is it when you're almost going to get into a conflict with a teacher? How can we use the learnings of dealing with pressure through a penalty to apply to school so that we can prevent them from getting excluded and help them on their journey? So we deliver an hour of that in the classroom, having an hour of football, and the football's very much where you almost put that into practice. So you kind of learn it explicitly in the classroom, and on the football pitch, that's where there's probably going to be some conflict. Sometimes we'll manufacture that,
and you
in a
can
session.
Connect those emotions then from your
Exactly.
everyday life into what's happening on the football pitch. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
As Chidi said, and as James spoke about, the power of football, the power of sport, particularly, I think it creates that link and bridges that gap. And as I said, we'll do things like, right, I'll pull someone aside. Okay, I want you to have an argument, and then see how the rest of the group help to manage that conflict, or not even cause an argument. I want you to just be really annoying on your team, be quite selfish with the ball, or really get on at your teammates, etc. Because those are the moments where you put that learning that you've done in the classroom, and hopefully you see the young people able to manage that conflict, able to de-escalate it, etc., stuff like that. So of course we're playing football, and that's like a big draw, but the football sessions are really designed not necessarily to make them better footballers, but to make them better people and help them in school. And then outside
who designed these programs? I mean, it's a very subtle thing, isn't it? It's a very subtle thing. You can just think, oh yeah, it's just kids playing football and they learn how to have a row or anything, but it's not. It's much more than that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the work that goes into the curriculum is incredible. We've got a curriculum team at FBB. Shout out to Harriet and Lorenzo, and then there's people before that who have sort of built that up. I know that Stefan was involved in that from FBB as well, and I guess it's been built up over years and building, and every year we review it and we try and make it better. But yeah, we've got 2 people that lead on that, design that curriculum, and then me as the sports program lead goes out there and implements it.
And then you can report back with the results of what you're seeing actually on the front line, as it were.
100%.
Yeah,
Exactly.
What's having results and what isn't, and all the rest of that. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
And James, what was it you thought about other things? But creative arts and sports is so important to young people.
Absolutely. So this is all about life chances for children and young people. And just while they're growing up, that's their opportunity. And everything that you were saying, I think, about it's the activity and it's the hooks, but it's also all of those wider kind of personal development and everything else that they get from it. And we know that there's been a massive erosion since about 2010 in terms of the funding that's been around for youth work, for positive opportunities and activities. And then for families, thinking about COVID, thinking about the cost of living crisis, it's just getting harder and harder to access, positive opportunities. So creative arts and sports, but also the other things like academic support, having new experiences like getting out of London or even getting into London. They're so deeply important for young people's development, and it gives everyone the chance to express themselves, to explore their talents, to find out what they're capable of, to broaden their horizons, to feel good about themselves, build friendships, to try new things. I think all of those pieces, there's an intrinsic value of each and every one of the activities, but at the same time, there's a kind of, all of them give you actually that rounded kind of piece. And it's also about fairness. I don't think we should be afraid of saying that. Middle-class children can take these things for granted. They take it for granted. They get music lessons, they go to sport, they go travelling on holiday, they get other experiences. It's an enormous part of life, but far from everyone has that. And that's the thing that we want to tackle. So if we want all our young people to thrive, that's got to change. And that's
that's one of your main thrusts now, is diversity and making sure that everyone gets that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to focus especially on children who either don't have lots of money at home, who are facing other inequalities in society. So, for example, from the communities that they come from, and we see very unequal outcomes at school. If they have special educational needs and disabilities, and also if they're at risk of exclusion, and hence working with Football Beyond Borders, as a large part of that. And I think we've got to really have, like I was saying before, a bit of the courage of what we're trying to achieve here, to really focus on those groups and say it is something special for them. That is the key. So the programs and the partnerships we can support will be directed in those ways, and we want to work with the schools, but we also want to work with the young people. And fundamental to Horizons is having that voice of the young people in it, who are then able to say, you know what, this is my perspective, this is my life experience.
Not just being told,
This is what would make a difference to my life.
And role models, of course. And just one last question, Chidi. And Tom, did you have a role model as somebody growing up as a young man that you can think of?
A lot of my role models were footballers. That was a big part of my life when I was a kid, and probably haven't done the best thing in their life now, but back in the day, that they were the people that I looked up to. If I was to pick one, it would cliche enoughly be my dad, probably. He was not a footballer, but he worked in schools. He's been a teacher his whole life, and just sort of from when I was younger, he'd take me into school with him, and I'd see how he'd interact with some of the kids he worked with, and he was never the authoritarian shouting at them, doing this, doing that, and I always respected that because I had teachers in school that would shout at me, and I had adults that weren't able to provide me with a feeling of positivity or trust. I wasn't able to build a relationship with them. So whenever I see it in adults, and I think it's impacted a lot in how I interact with kids these days, it's something I look up to a lot. It's something I think has massive effects. It's something that you will never forget. Like, I'm sure you can all remember a teaching that's made an impact in your life. And it's because they was positive. It's because they showed you that love and that care.
Well, I can't actually, to be perfectly honest.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, there you are. And you, Tom?
Yeah, me and Chidi were discussing this before. I think that, like Chidi, I loved football growing up, hence why I'm involved in FBB now. As a Crystal Palace fan, I'm sure I looked up to some of the players then. I can remember Andrew Johnson. I loved him when he fired us to promotion to the Premier League, but I wouldn't necessarily call him a role model. And I think, thinking about what you said, James, in terms of maybe like middle class children being able to take that kind of thing for granted. I think on reflection, as a young person who was fortunate enough to be from that sort of background, maybe I didn't need that sort of role model. I had amazing parents, amazing family, I had great teachers that I can remember, but I think that I didn't necessarily have that one role model. But now I know that I'm in a position where I hopefully can be that role model to some young people. I can be that consistent presence that comes every week, so that comes to their school every week and gives them that advice, gives them that support. So, no, I wouldn't say I necessarily had one particular role model, but as I said, I can be that person to some young people that I work with now.
Well, that's a very encouraging thought. Yeah, funny enough, because Paul Weller's playing with me at this gig. Did I mention it at Alexandra Palace? So there's still a few tickets left. And we just finished a song, funny enough, called Who Do You Think You Are, on this score, right, Sunshine. And it was like that, what you said there, Chidi, about, encouragement rather than putting you down all the time, you know. And that's unfortunately the school I went to. It wasn't anybody's fault. They were very under, financed, and it was just everyone was angry in this school. And all he wanted was a little bit of encouragement. And I think that's just an incredible thing that you're trying to do here today.
And just to pick up on that, sorry,
Yeah,
when you
go on,
talk about encouragement, I think that comes back to one of FBB's core principles. What we always talk about is that we have unconditional positive regard with the young people we work with.
Yeah.
So it means that
And they're
no matter
getting
what
the
we
feedback
do,
to you,
no matter what they do, we're still positive with them. Of course, they're going to make mistakes. They're young people. They're going to do things that they need to understand they can't do or is wrong. But there's a way that you can approach those conversations that still allows you to be positive with them and not sort of shame them and make them feel bad about it. And that comes back to that encouragement that you spoke about.
Yeah, I mean, this is an endless subject, but my daughter was involved with kids in a Young Offenders Institute, and I was in there, and there were people saying a lot of the kids in here have just never had one word of encouragement in their entire lives. No one's ever said yes or well done or thank you. Anyway, so James, will you be teaming up with any other charities? How's that looking?
Definitely. This is all about partnerships, and that's why we're here with Football Beyond Borders today.
Yeah.
But Horizons won't be delivering all of the support on offer. So we're looking to raise as much money as possible. Did you mention the launch event?
I will again.
And we want to work with just the best that's out there. We want to bring the best, most exciting opportunities and things that will make the biggest difference to children and young people, to Haringey, to Enfield. And it's amazing what happens when you have a magnet, you have a clear vision, a person. We haven't even started yet.
Yeah.
And yet here we are.
I can feel it already. Man. I can feel
and this
it.
is amazing to be here with all of you.
Yeah.
And this is just an idea at the moment. We're getting there. But it's amazing how much there are lots of charities out there who have amazing things to offer. It might be money, or it might actually be resources and things they can do with the children and young people, but actually need
And
the
it might
way
be
in.
small things and it might be big things, but it all adds
And that can
to the
touch them
pot.
in different ways, that is so powerful. But what we really want to do as well, though, is to build partnerships. So not just kind of pay for a bit here, pay for a bit there, but what does it all add up to? It's a long-term shared vision of that intrinsic goodness of the young people and giving them the support that's going to help them to absolutely fly.
Well, thank you very much, chaps, and it's been very inspiring for me because I'm coming into this quite new. James, Chidi, Tom, thank you very much for joining me. And to find out more about Horizons, visit horizonscharity.org or follow them on the socials. Oh yeah, and by the way, did I tell you? I'm performing at Alexandra Palace on the 27th of October. Beautiful. Hope to see you then. Thanks so much for watching.